Thank you very much. And a shout out to Dr. Helen Marlowe, who I see on Zoom, my co-author of The Spiritual Psyche that Judy just read. Hello, Helen. And hello to everybody who is
Hi, Willow.
Hello. And nice to see everybody here in person as well. I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to spend an hour together centering on the alchemy of the divine feminine, dis/identification, and the transcendent function. And what I'd like to invite us into together for this hour is to presence the transcendent function, which I'll say a few words about, as a holding of the tension of opposites. And we'll do that together in music, musical reverie, by playing with identifying and disidentifying with the divine feminine. And we'll do that through three songs that I've curated for this presentation from my album Caesura's Cry, which Judy just told you about, which I published in July. And the three songs, which hopefully everybody has the lyrics accessible, there's three songs that I'll perform today: Yin, Tasting Space, and Mirror, Mirror. And I've curated these three songs in particular because they all speak to invoke and emanate from the divine feminine in some way, shape, or form. And then we'll have engaged conversation together where I really want to welcome people's experiences, perhaps in the music today, perhaps in the conference as a whole, perhaps in life, of identifying and disidentifying variously with the divine feminine. And I hope by doing so to presence the way in which the appearance of the divine feminine can disclose her disappearance and vice versa. And so I want to suggest that this tension of opposites, which I'll invoke more particularly, can also give way to a simultaneity that actually invokes a multiplicity of being. So I'll say more about that. So our roadmap is a little theory, a little music, and a little conversation. How does that sound to everybody? Woo. All right. So, how many people are familiar with Jung's transcendent function? Awesome. So let me ask, do we have a mic that we can share no, okay, no worries. I'll just repeat what you say in the mic so Zoom people can hear. So just a couple of shout outs of how you regard the transcendent function. Anything that's on people's minds about it. What do we think about the transcendent function?
Mediator.
A mediator? Beautiful. What else comes to mind, just from what we have already absorbed about this notion, or what it speaks to us in the moment, just using those two words together?
Embracing.
Embracing, beautiful. Mediating, embracing.
Going beyond.
Going beyond, lovely. Those are all lovely, lovely, lovely descriptions. Let me add to those with a description that comes from Emilia Keel. Emilia Keel wrote an article called Vehicle of Psychic Change, and is from the International Association for Analytical Psychology. And Emilia wrote this: the transcendent function is one of the core concepts of Jung's model of the psyche. It is an attempt to explain the phenomena of psychic change and development. The transcendent function enables a transition from one psychological attitude to another through a dialectical process of integrating the psyche's conscious and unconscious contents into a third position, which constitutes a new step in the evolution of personality. The process of psychological development, Emily just says, that Jung termed individuation, or becoming oneself, involves coming to terms with one's unconscious. The aim of analysis of the unconscious is the development of the transcendent function, which carries this process through and creates a symbol where unconscious and conscious mind meet. The way the transcendent function is an individual destiny is what, let me read, this is Jung's direct quote. The way of the transcendent function is an individual destiny, is what Jung said to us. So the transcendent function, yes, mediating, yes, receptive, absolutely, embracing, and particularly holding this tension of opposites. So I want to read about that to you from this Jungian Life podcast to amplify this sense of holding this tension of opposites, which I invite us to do with identifying and disidentifying that polarity with the divine feminine. Holding the tension between opposites, the podcast writes, was one of Jung's foundational precepts, although contradictory views are often a better witness to truth than one-sided conviction. Beliefs, decisions often serve to relieve ambiguity, anxiety, and threat. Jung says, and I quote, "The ego keeps its integrity only if it does not identify with one of the opposites. And it's if it understands how to hold the balance between them. This is possible only if it remains conscious of both at once." And so our invitation today is to remain conscious of identifying and disidentifying with the divine feminine, playing with her appearance and her disappearance, perhaps even at the same time. So Jung went on to say, however necessary insight is made exceedingly difficult, not by one's social and political leaders alone, but also by one's religious mentors. They all want decisions in favor of one thing, and therefore the utter identification of the individual with the necessarily one-sided truth. So this Jungian Life podcast concludes this: we need to suffer the tension a plurality of views and voices produces. Holding the tension of opposites grows consciousness, wholeness, and soul. So that's the invitation today. And let's go to the slide number 3 with the tension of opposites. I want to show you this image from Eva Tushman-Leonard, writing partner and collaborator, with her image called Drawing with Stitches. And this image is, she talks about there being a luminous core that is sutured in this way. And I think it's a lovely elemental figure that demonstrates in a visual form this holding a tension of opposites, that it's still held as two and yet joined. So it's something that holds the separateness and also in conjoining them in some way through this third position of the transcendent function. Let's go to slide 4. I want to also invite that perhaps if we take the transcendent function and this holding of opposites one step further, we perhaps invite the possibility of how I'm writing in this talk title, dis/identification, that perhaps goes beyond identification and disidentification and its integration into a multiplicity of being, where in this way, disidentification is a path of development seeded by the transcendent function and this tension of opposites that blooms as a non-duality through multiplicity. At times, a dissociation, at times, an identification, at times, an integration, at times, a further deconstruction, at times, yes, a tension of opposites, at times, dissolution, at times, this multiplicity or simultaneity of being. and that may they all be welcomed from the perspective of multiplicity in an eternal play of isness and becoming. So if we go to the next slide, I want to invite one more term before we go to the music and let all this theory just hover in the background as a sort of pointing out of possibility. And this last suggestion comes from myth singer and mythopoetic author and independent scholar, the late Daniel Deardorff. Does anybody know Deardorff's work? I really highly recommend his book. It's called The Other Within, The Genius of Deformity in Myth, Culture, and Psyche. It's an incredible book, really conjoining the perspectives of social justice and non-duality in such a confluent and rigorous and passionate way. I believe Deardorff crossed over in like 2019. And his book was published in 2022 by his beloved Judith Kate Friedman, who's a singer in the Bay Area, who continues his work. So he gave us this phrase, identity prior to identification. And I want to suggest that this paradoxical phrase or invocation is some kind of conjoining of our radical social justice and radical non-duality capacities. That there's a play there of identity prior to identification. And specifically, I think this expression is a wonderful pointing out instruction of a fruit of perhaps a transcendent immanent practice of dis/identification that holds the small self, the large self, capital S, the no self as a pregnant void. And that perhaps we could say that this birth of identity prior to identification is the birth of and through the divine feminine. I want to invite that possibility as well to play with in our reverie together. So with that series of concepts and pointings out in the background, let's go to our practice together. We can have the yin slide. So I want to move to music, to invite the unconscious to play inside the music with your own reverie. And please, if you feel like moving, you are more than welcome to move, to get up and dance, or however you want to move your body, and sitting is fine too. And I want to play these 3 songs, and the first one, Yin, is born out of the practice of taking difficult emotions and transmuting them into their wisdom aspect. So the song invites transmuting poisons into their wisdom aspect, so-called poisons. And this comes particularly from a Vajrayana Buddhist practice. But infinite number of other spiritual practices play with these same concepts and ideas and possibilities. So the idea of taking anger and transmuting it into patience. The idea of taking jealousy and transmuting it into seeing all that we are and can be. The idea of taking passion and transmuting it into neutrality where that's called for. The possibility of bewilderment opening into wisdom's door, of pride opening into humility, and of poison itself transmuting into liberation. So these are all ways that we can play in this song with holding the tension of opposites, the ways in which these poisons and their wisdom are apparent opposites, but also how they're bound together in some way. So the song is called Yin. itself in time, pouring water into water through a turning of the mind. Anger is not far from patience you will find when you still the heart through a turning of your mind. Yes, jealousy is not so far from examining the truth of all that you can be that lives inside and around you. Water into water becomes itself in time, pouring water into water through a turning of the mind. Passion is not far, yes, from neutrality. When you expand the view to include every being. Water into water becomes itself in time, pouring water into water through a turning of the mind. Bewilderment is not so far from wisdom's door. You'll know what to do and what not to do as you breathe through the core. Yes, pride is not so far from humility. When you turn your gaze to include every being, you will see water into water. Do not separate the drops. Pouring water into water never stops. Poison is not so far from wisdom's gate. When you apply the antidote, your mind, you liberate. I think what would be nice is before going to the next song, to just invite any reveries of identifying and disidentifying with the divine feminine. Any sense of how the unconscious is visiting you in this very moment, with perhaps a sense of the divine feminine within, between, around, and beyond us. Anybody?
You say that for identifying as perhaps being held at the moment, but I felt changing my body somehow, helping me remember my body as water, and I could fall into that some sense of grace.
Beautiful sense of the body as water, falling into a sense of grace. Thank you. Any other ways that the divine feminine within us, around us, between us, and beyond us might be visiting us in this moment as we play with identifying and disidentifying with her? Being in the silence is always a lovely way to regard her. Receptivity, beautiful.
I found myself more on the disidentification side.
What did you find there?
Well, I was wondering which divine feminine, because there are many, it seems.
Absolutely. So can we go to slide 7? My invitation, slide 7's the other way. Yeah, you had it there. Next one. So the divine feminine, her infinite names and forms. Her infinite names and forms. So I think any conception that we have in the present moment of the divine feminine is her. And I will invoke in these next 2 songs some particular forms and names of the divine feminine in these next 2 songs, particularly from the Hindu pantheon. But I would say any way she appears to you, any names in this room, names of beings that you know that are both immanent and transcendent. That would be my invitation. Anybody else have a sense of what divine feminine we're talking about? Yeah.
For me, it's Radha.
Tell me about Radha for you.
Compassion and serenity and unconditional love.
Compassion, serenity, unconditional love. Radha, beautiful. Thank you for invoking her. And we can feel what it's like to feel her through everybody else's experience of her. Let's move to the next song then. Let's go to the slide for tasting space. So this particular invocation to the divine feminine is from the Hindu goddess Parvati to the Hindu god Shiva. And I would say more expansively, transculturally, that it could be the ode of the feminine in all her names and forms to the divine masculine in all of his infinite names and forms. And of course, I think it hopefully goes without saying, and yet in these times is very important to say, this is a praxis and an invitation for people of all gender identities, all gender experiences, all gender expressions, and all gender expansions. And as we play with the divine feminine and invoke the divine masculine, we're welcoming all these permutations of how we experience her and also him. And that this song invokes love in 3 ways. Love as reaching for itself, resting in itself, and pouring into itself. And I'd like to imagine that the divine feminine as Parvati and beyond is doing just that. So this is tasting space. And again, please feel free to move or relocate in the room. I'm glad some people are already inviting that. However you're comfortable. Parvati turned her gaze to Shiva, said, "Hey baby, what's the matter? Why don't you come on over here? Lay your trident down an hour. I know it's not easy being the destroyer. Just look at you, all blue in the face. There's so precious little understanding of the clearing you create. Come meet me at the razor's edge. We'll dance inside this fire. With love reaching for itself, an unburdening desire. She said, "You're like a dark chocolate candy with a pinch of salt at the center. You go down so sweetly with a hint of bitter. In truth, I savor you. You know I never devour. Intoxicated by your flavor and enjoying your power. To meet me at where I am, where I am, where I am, tasting space. Well, stolen waters, they may be sweet, but the river is better. Once you slip all the way in, you get wetter. Through the waters, I'll set you free, as I've done before. Well, okay. You've got me. Oh, but there's more. So come meet me in the riverbed. We'll douse the slipstream. Love pouring into herself. What a beautiful dream. What a beautiful dream. Where I am, where I am, where I am, tasting space. So where is she now in our identification and disidentification with the divine feminine? Any reveries from the land of the unconscious, from tasting space that anybody wishes to share? Yeah.
This was very hypnotic, so powerful, and just from today, it helped me with some of my critical thoughts, like the things that I wanted to say at some of the workshops but didn't say. And it's just showing me again, this is such a equally strong but different power, in that you are receiving and you are still saying. It made me aware of the quantum realm.
Receiving and still saying, different ways of receiving and communicating.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. You can feel that sense as you're speaking.
Oh.
Other reveries from tasting space of your relationship to perhaps identifying and disidentifying with the divine feminine?
I'm over here online.
Yes, thank you.
And
Please.
yeah, first of all, I was really aware of the flow and the love that came from your first song, which was very emergent and releasing of energy. And I thought of Saraswati, the Hindu goddess of music. And then in the second one, it was just so here in New Zealand, in Auckland, and in the afternoon on a Sunday morning, and opening to the beautiful breeze and in the lovely forest just outside my window door, I was able to step out onto the veranda and just really touch into the Kali in me, which was kind of internalizing and strengthening and kind of just beautiful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that reverie all the way from Auckland, New Zealand. That's lovely. And I can almost feel the breeze as you say it. And perhaps that breeze is leading us to Kali and Saraswati, Lakshmi and Durga of the third and final song together before we talk a little bit further. This last song that I want to share with you is called Mirror, Mirror. And Mirror, Mirror is a song by, from, for, with, and through Durga, who is the triple goddess of Lakshmi, Kali, and Saraswati. And so if Durga is the warrior goddess that invokes, harbors, constitutes, and emanates, Kali, goddess of creative destruction, as well as Lakshmi, goddess of abundance, as well as Saraswati, as Jenny just told us, the goddess of philosophy, music, and poetry. And so they come in this particular song in the guise of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And further, their guises are as the little sister, the middle sister, and the elder sister. So I invite you to play with these faces of the divine feminine in all of those expressions and ways that we might receive her and let her go in her appearance and her disappearance and her reappearance and her disappearance once again. Mirror, mirror on the wall, she is the mother of us all. And as I soften my gaze, she appears threefold through her anja blades. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi. Little sister, yes, I know you well. You know truth, you know beauty, and you cast a spell. Yet there are so many things you have yet to learn. All appearances your mind has yet to turn. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi. Middle sister, yes, I know you too, even though you never think I do. Yes, you understand that this youth shall pass, yet you are ripening still along the path. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi. elder sister. Oh, you mount the throne, 'cause you know in your bones that no one is home to shower you with praises or to hurl their blame. You unfold, extend into, and become everything. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi. Oh, three sisters, you are dancing and seeing through all these riddles of the mind. Oh, three sisters, you are loving, coaxing breath along the spine. Oh, three sisters, haven't you heard? You fashion poetry note by note without saying a word. Mirror, mirror in your eyes, behold the mother. There is no disguise. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi. Durga, 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 Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati. Durga. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. How are we, Sabine, on time? Do we have a moment for conversation, or I'm not sure where we are with the when we started?
Got a little bit of time for some conversation, yeah.
Okay, great. So I just would love to welcome any reverie about the divine feminine further from our being together with Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, the emanations together and jointly as Durga, and the little sister, and the middle sister, and the elder sister. Do we have any little sisters in the room? All right, we got a couple. How about middle sisters? Any middle sisters? Nice. I see two hands. What about elder sisters? Yeah, sweet. All right, at least 3. Beautiful. And any thing that you can tell us from those vantage points about your relationship to the divine feminine in her dissolution and her revelation, in her appearance and her disappearance? What would you have us know about the wisdom that she carries?
Middle sister or not. They all, for me, they are all like, all of them, even as they go. I personally have a faith in this, where they come in these different forms and then seem complete. So that every single
Nice.
And I did have one question when
Yeah.
you say, seeing through all these riddles of them. Say one more time.
I think that line, seeing through riddles of the mind, is an invitation to direct experience that is transconceptual, that is our immediate felt sense, our immediate intuitive sense, and goes beyond our conceptual thinking, although it can visit us as such, maybe down the road, right? Maybe even in the next moment. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Seeing them be described as sisters reminds us that they're all in relationship to each other and they all have a different role and they come and go. And it's interesting, it made me remember that so I have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. My eldest is 14 and my boy is turning 8. And he has this anxiety that comes and goes when Arya goes off and she goes to college. So something about the older sister.
Going off into the world, and that container is expanding, bidden or unbidden, eh?
Yeah.
The challenge, the separation. Any last thoughts together that want to be voiced to one another? Yes, in the back.
The feeling about the integration of divine masculine, divine feminine in this Jungian way today. And I think because of the music, it's softened, that water really got into my thinking, left, right. And I was able to understand more of this feeling. And when you just ask about sister, something, it's still moving, but the understanding is that it's happening inside all of the layers of the sisters to the karmic understanding of my other beings.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Moving in layers, maybe undulating in our understandings together, our reveries together. Something about the relationships to divine feminine and divine masculine, eh? Lovely. Thank you so much. I think there was another, yeah, please.
Responsibility in the sense of letting the responsibility go.
Mm. Mm.
Sisters.
Mm. Beautiful. That feels like such a lovely closing comment around our individuation and the quote that we began with about how that's such an individual journey. And as Jung said, the individual destiny. Okay? Thank you so much for that. Let me just please close by thanking all the incredible tech support with Ben and the room hosts and my dear friend Breck. And so Sabine and Judy, thank you very much. And also I want to thank Helga and Lee and the conference committee for this incredible conference. I want to thank my writing partners, Eva Tushman-Leonard, Helen Marlowe, and Stephen Block for all the ways that they incalculably contributed to this presentation. And I'll leave you with one final thought. This is on slide 15. This is a quote that my Jungian analyst friend, Stephen Block in Cape Town, South Africa, shared with me when I told him about this presentation. This is from Carl Jung. He says, "In the end, the anima is the archetype of life itself. In the end, the anima is the archetype of life itself." So I'll just leave you with that thought. And enjoy the rest of the conference. And thank you so much for sharing this time together inside the music, inside theory of the divine feminine's emergence with the transcendent function and our multiplicity of being. Thank you very much.